Now I'm honored to introduce our keynote speaker, Tina Orwall, Washington State Representative, Social Justice Champion, and School of Social Work MSW graduate, class of 1991. Since 2009, Tina has represented Washington's 33rd District, bringing her unrelenting passion for social reform to Olympia. Her collaborative approach and steadfast commitment to inclusion enable her to find common ground on tough social issues, whether suicide prevention, rape kit reform, sex trafficking, homelessness, or adoptee rights. Before joining the state legislature, Tina was a clinical social worker serving individuals with mental illness and advocating for those experiencing homelessness. In 2017, she received the school's prestigious Moya M. Duplica Distinguished Alumni Award. Her more recent honors include the 2020 National Association of Social Workers Washington State Public Citizen of the Year Award and the Allies in Action State Award from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I am delighted to welcome a great friend of our school and of our state, this year's School of Social Work graduation keynote speaker, state legislature and social worker, Tina Orwall.
Thank you for your kind introduction and for your strong leadership. You have such a warm presence. We are so fortunate to have you at the helm of our school, the top social work program in the world. Hello, graduates of class of 2020. It is such a great honor to have been selected to speak at your graduation. Thank you. I know the past few weeks have been extremely heart-wrenching and have been weighing heavily on all of us. Racial and social justice advocacy have always been a priority for social workers, but we have seen a level of awareness like never before, and now is the time to mobilize the community into meaningful action. As stated earlier, I graduated with my BS in psychology and MSW from the University of Washington. I was in the evening program where I worked full-time, I went to class and practicum all at once. I know how demanding these programs can be. What you've done is no small feat. I know you've worked so hard to be here today, and you have made countless sacrifices while juggling many of life's competing demands. And even though we aren't in Heck Ed, where I can see your beautiful faces, thanks to technology, we are connected. I'd like to take a moment to thank the talented faculty of the School of Social Work, and I'd like to give a special shout out to Professor Jen Stuber, who in her darkest hour reached out to help others. We have worked on over 9 bills addressing suicide prevention in our state, including one this year which will require more advanced training for clinicians working in the field. I am also so proud of the University of Washington and their leadership during this pandemic. And of course, I could not be more proud of you, the graduating class of 2020. You know, years ago, in the early 80s, before laptops, I was an undergraduate and research peon at the University of Washington. I remember sitting in a dark room, entering data into the mainframe. I think we were using SPSS, which they still use today. And my early computer, I think it was a Commodore 64. This was exciting new technology, but it was so slow. And on a regular basis, it would just freeze. So whenever that happened, you could do a warm reboot, which you would push 3 magic buttons, Control, Alt, and Delete. And if that didn't work, you had to do a hard reboot, the forced one, pushing on the start button, force a reboot. You never knew what was gonna happen. Often you had a blank screen and all of your data was lost. Did you still have an operating system? COVID-19 was a hard reboot. Within a short period of time, we saw so many deaths as our state became one of the first epicenters of the virus in the country. The status quo was shattered and our lives were forever changed. Then, during this period of profound vulnerability and isolation, yet again, we become witnesses to what can only be described as a modern-day lynching of a Black man by the name of George Floyd. With his final breaths, he calls out for his mother. I can't breathe. His final words, you are going to kill me. Our hearts broke. There is a saying, you can choose to look away, but you can never say again that you didn't know. Our nation has looked away for hundreds of years. Massacres of indigenous people, slavery, lynching, mass incarceration, police brutality, death penalty sentences. The murder of George Floyd struck a nerve so deep in our nation's soul that has erupted in acute response to centuries of pain and suffering for people of color, especially our Black community. Black Lives Matter. We are no longer looking away. We have taken our voices to the streets and reached out to our elected leaders. I am so proud of everyone who has made their voices heard. As an elected official, we see you, we hear you. Black lives do matter. This has been a stressful time on all of us, but we know some are carrying a heavier burden. We are still trying to figure out what we have lost. My heart aches for those who have been deeply impacted by police brutality and a racist system, who have lost loved ones, who have suffered silently under oppression and fear for years, those who have lost a sense of safety or health, and those who have lost their financial security. So in this global pandemic, what have we gained? We have found new connections, and I don't mean just electronically. I mean our fate, our fears, our vulnerabilities, our constant reminder of our own mortality, which is breaking news every hour. And yes, we have embraced some new ways of connecting electronically that have less impact on the environment, though I do think there's some out there that may need some effective Zoom meeting training. And I don't know about your dog or cat, but my dog Kona thinks it's pet utopia. I go outside to the mailbox and she's like, "Where have you been?" But most of all, what has brought us together is our search for justice. Lining the streets day after day, standing up together, I am so inspired. So what lies ahead? We may not have control over this pandemic occurring, but we do have control on how we respond and move forward, and we will move forward. We have also gained a unique opportunity. Our status quo has been shattered. Let us not spend our time trying to piece it back together. This is an opportunity to reboot our humanity. It is our time, your time, to rebuild our society and our systems that were built on institutional racism. Let us build them in a way where everyone has a seat at the table and no one is left behind. How many systems can you think of that need a reboot? As a legislator, I've had the opportunity to work on failed systems. Back in 2015, I was touring an evidence room looking at storage issues, and I kept seeing these white boxes stacked to the ceiling. I asked staff what was in them. They explained they were sexual assault kits and had never been tested. I sat in my car that day and cried, knowing each of those boxes was a survivor's voice who had never been heard. They probably thought we had tested them, but we had failed. We later discovered over 10,000 kits sitting on shelves across our state and over 400,000 nationwide. And many untested kits belonged to survivors of color. The system had failed. After that, I introduced legislation to require that every kit be tested and a creation of a statewide team of law enforcement, prosecutors, the Attorney General, providers, and survivors with the task of creating a trauma-informed system to support survivors. It's been an honor to team up with my colleagues Leah and Nicole, who bring a survivor perspective and have helped shape our policies. They have been powerful voices to help us build this system at the state and national level. The system had little interest to change. It needed a reboot. We've made a lot of significant changes, including mandatory testing of every kit when the survivor wants to pursue charges, a statewide tracking system where the survivor can check the status of their kit online, and hundreds have, the creation of a high-throughput lab, which after we eliminate the backlog, will test every kit within 45 days. Resources for investigating these older cases, because it's not enough just to test. We need to investigate and prosecute. Trauma-informed training for law enforcement, which is a good start, but we know we need to expand cultural and racial bias training as well. But it is not enough to just test. We need these cases investigated and prosecuted. Changes to our law so the burden is not on the survivor to show all the ways they did not consent, but to shift the burden on the perpetrator to prove affirmative consent. This is critical because now we have less than 2% of sexual assault cases ever making it to trial. Now we are building a system that provides a pathway for justice for survivors and is holding serial rapists accountable, because no survivor should be asked what they were wearing or if they fought back enough. No survivor should be afraid to report their sexual assault, and no survivor should be silenced or forgotten. Thanks to the actions of our state and the strong voices of survivors and advocates, this will not happen again. So what system do you want to reboot? How about our criminal justice system and those impacted by police brutality or mass incarceration, or eliminating the death penalty? Or how about rebooting the juvenile justice system and eliminating the school-to-prison pipeline? Or the lack of response to youth, primarily youth of color, who are being bought and sold for sexual exploitation every day in our community? How about how we respond to individuals and families who are experiencing homelessness? How about rebooting who receives access to quality health care? This is our time to build a new system, include the voices of those who have been left behind or forgotten. As you think about the work ahead, I want to share 4 things that I have learned on this life journey that I hope you find helpful. First, you are not alone. In tough times or good times, I know you may feel isolated, alone, fearful, especially working in such a demanding field. We are all connected. Everything we do in life is a team, your school, career, or family life. I know I work with an amazing team of people in Olympia, so I want to do a special shout out to Mary. We've worked together for 12 years, and she is the kindest and hardest working person I know. And Rachel, Emily, and all my talented colleagues. I want you to take a moment. Think about who inspired you, motivated you, believed in you, and helped you be where you are today. The second lesson, a true leader helps others lead. You know, I always think of one of my favorite supervisors, David Wertheimer. We worked for King County on a homeless project, and he'd bring us together and he'd say, "What if?" And we worked on complex system issues. We need to surround ourselves with people who think bold and out of the box. I have an opportunity to supervise amazing social work interns every year. I am so proud of them. 2 of my recent interns, Noah and Rachel, are both working in Olympia. And just to let you know, we need more social workers in Olympia. The skills I developed at the School of Social Work have been critical to my work in Olympia, like making sure every voice is heard, setting up a transparent and fair process for all. I want to do a shout out to Emily Stone, my amazing social work intern this year. She was able to jump in and research best practices on protecting homeowners from predatory contractors and present it to a very large stakeholder group. She worked on the Mockingbird model and expanding services to foster youth. And after 3 years, helped us pass Safe Harbors that provides a therapeutic response to young survivors of trafficking. I am so proud of you. Thank you, Emily. You are truly amazing. Next, I want to talk about integrity versus loyalty. Which do you think is more important? When you look at the definitions, integrity is kind of that moral compass inside us. It's part of our character that we build over a lifetime. And loyalty is that strong feeling of support or allegiance. At some point, you will have a challenge in your workplace, and maybe your personal life, where there is a tremendous pressure to conform in a way that may not align with your values, beliefs, or identities. I remember my son, who was in 3rd grade when I first ran for office. He said, "Mom, do you know how you know you're doing a good job?" He said, "When something really important comes up, everyone is sitting down and you stand up." Please remember to not only stand up for others, but to stand up for yourself. Because at the end of the day, integrity is about remaining loyal to yourself. And finally, there are things that can be hard to find. One of them is kindness. I'll share a secret with you. Most of the time when I receive an email from a constituent, it's not to tell me I'm doing a good job. Though occasionally I get emails that are kind sent to me, and I put them in a folder called kind emails. What I have found is that someone often reaches out to my office when they are frustrated or in crisis. Some of the letters I get can be pretty angry, such as letting me know that I am the most incompetent person on the face of the earth. When I receive a mean-spirited email, I try to remember they are probably angry because they don't feel heard. They are in pain, scared, or don't have a sense of belonging. Validating their feelings and showing kindness, taking the kind road can go a long way. And then, as a social worker, I instinctively also try to connect them with the resources they need. So what I have learned is that to open a mind, we must first open a heart, starting with our own. In closing, we have a difficult road ahead of us. There is so much work. So please, stay safe, stay healthy, stay strong, my friend. This is your moment. You are a Husky grad. You are an essential worker. Your service, your leadership, your vision, you are needed more than ever. So let's work together to build a better future. Thank you.